our latest episode or one of our previous episodes, we talked about the CrossFit Open and how to utilize that as a measurement for where we go next. But we talked in that the idea of like what the Open provides when it comes to intensity, and just because it provides a completely different like environment as well as output from individuals. Mm-hmm. And so on this episode, we're going to kind of give an overview of this concept of practice training and competition, and then we're going to kind of break down each of these a little bit more and more in their own episodes. But we wanted to talk about this concept because we've noticed there was a lot of people after doing the Open were kind of like, wait a second. And then there was also like, we even had our own personal revelations where we noticed like, okay, we're missing these dosages in our training as well. And so it's something that's important to always reflect on and look on, but there is a balance to how we train. I think there's a big misconception that training is 110%, even though you can't do 110%. But
I know, I hate people saying that.
It's going 100% every single day, all you can get, all you give, all those kind of things. And the reality of that is that's far from the truth.
100%.
Even your elite of your elite, your fittest of the fittest, your best of your best, they'll train super hard, but they're very intentional with what they do and how they do it. And their approach is very similar to what we're going to talk about now. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of just wanted to break that down.
And I think this is important not only for athletes or someone interested in competition of CrossFit, but for anybody doing the CrossFit methodology.
Yeah.
Because this will help you get fitter. And I think there's a lot of misinterpretation when we say, like, get fitter. People think, like, the strength, the stamina, the respiratory endurance, the power, the speed, that kind of stuff. And, yes, that's a big part of it. But there's a whole other side of getting fitter that's all those neurological components.
Yeah.
The coordination, the balance, like the movement efficiency, things like that. And when I think about fitness, I'm thinking like, okay, our bodies are an organism. You're an organism. Everybody's an organism. And we want to maximize how that organism can operate in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if we're missing half of how we operate as an organism with those neurological components, we're never going to reach our full potential of fitness and be as fit as we can be. And I think this is where one of the places where CrossFit is better than everybody else.
Yeah.
Like no other training methodology looks at our fitness, our organism as a whole. Mm-hmm. They just focus on faster, stronger, heavier, and not all of these other things that come with practice.
Yeah.
And that's where like F45 doesn't do that. Orange Theory doesn't do it. Bodybuilding doesn't do it. Training for endurance doesn't do it. Like there's nothing else out there I have found that is as broad across our entire bodies as CrossFit is. And it's a big, if you're not doing it, you're missing a big piece of your puzzle with how fit you can be as like a human being.
Yeah. And what I like about it too is it's like the thing is like with the CrossFit methodology and how this breaks down this practice and this training and this like competition aspect is this same principle really does truly apply to everything you do. Like just running, what people don't realize is there's a skill to running. Like even if you're a runner,
not Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
You don't just go out and run. I'm just running.
Right. And it's like even if you're like, well, I'm a runner, this doesn't apply to me. It does apply
100%
because you should still, to get better at running, more efficient at running, more fit in your running category, you should practice the skill of running because there's a skill to it. There's stride length. There's contact of the foot. Yes. There's all these things that if you work on them, you're not only going to become a better runner, but you're going to become more fit and you're going to become more efficient and all those things. And what I like to think about when these categories come down, I'm like, well, I don't need to practice the handstand walk. It's like, here's the thing, though, is like you may never walk on your hands. It's awesome. But the more you practice towards that skill, you're going to, you're going to bring your fitness higher. Just simply the closer you get to that movement, even if you don't ever plan to achieve it, it's like the closer you get to that movement, the more fit you are.
There's a lot of benefits that you'll get on that journey, even if you never get to the final destination.
Exactly.
Your shoulders will get stronger. Again, your coordination, being upside down will get stronger. Your balance will get better. Your shoulder stability will improve just by working on the handstand walk, even if you never get there.
Yeah.
So are we going into like each of these individually, practice training, or are we going to do that as a separate podcast?
We'll get into it in a separate podcast. We'll try to keep this very overview-like. Perfect. Just to kind of get where this is heading.
Yeah. So what I would say I see no one's practicing. Almost nobody's practicing. That's the one I see the least in this. And we'll go into it in different podcasts, but there's ways that you can do it like that. You don't have to spend a bunch of time outside of class. You can do it inside of class. Quit screwing around during warm-ups and cool downs and use that time to practice.
Yeah. And so hold on. Before I guess we go too far,
I'm gonna start going down the rabbit holes.
I know. So let's do it this way. So first and foremost, to kind of like recap what we're like really getting into is we're getting to this concept that you should, in your training, you should spend some time practicing, some time training, and then some time competing.
Yes.
And so we'll define these here, and then we'll kind of get into a little bit more of like how we can incorporate each of these and why they're important. And then we'll have later episodes where we'll dive specifically in each one and break those down. So looking at practice, how we look at and define practice. It's as it sounds, but I think the big conceptions or misconceptions like you were kind of noting there is people don't really practice because they don't understand what practicing is. And this is an easy trap to fall in, but many people tend to practice way too hard in the fact that
it's not practice anymore.
Yes, their intensity is way too hard.
Yes.
And practice is tricky, but practice can be done for anything, right? We just talked about running, and the big thing is everything has a skill. The air squat is a skill.
Yeah.
There's some individuals that cannot air squat properly because their mechanics, the skill of the movement is off. And so they need to practice that in a multitude of ways. But the big thing to understand with practice is it's a very low intensity. It's never max effort, and it's never to the point of failure.
Yeah.
And it can be broken down in a multitude of levels, right? We'll get to like when we talk about that in a future episode, we'll like, okay, well, how do we practice, handstand walk? How do we practice? We'll get into more specifics when we look at that. But the big thing to understand with practice is it's short, it's simple, it's low intensity, and in some way it's going to focus on a skill bound to whatever movement you're focusing on.
Yeah, that's why it's what's your intention with this thing that you're doing? If you are practicing, the intention, the purpose is to improve movement efficiency.
Yes.
Improve your movement mechanics and efficiency. It doesn't matter if it's as simple as an air squat. Hey, your air squat sucks. You can't get to depth. You can't keep your chest up. We need to practice that. Doing more air squats faster or going heavier by loading back squats is not going to make your movement efficiency better. And this could go all the way up to like Olympic lifts, high skill gymnastics. But it's all about the intention of, hey, when I do this thing today, my only goal is to better my movement mechanics. I don't care about my time. I don't care about my speed, how fast I'm going, how heavy I'm going. Because you noted to it, you see like people tend to practice too heavy and too fast. Let's not practice anymore. Like now we're getting into the category of training.
Yeah.
And they are so interlinked because the better your movement efficiency is, the faster, heavier, and harder you will be able to train, the fitter you are going to get.
Yep.
It's like they're not these separate constructs. If you have better movement efficiency, your body's in better positions, you can lift heavier weight, you can do things faster, you're decreasing the risk of injury, you're going to get stronger. You're going to get fitter. But you have to do that by practicing.
Yeah, and it goes down to the principle of like CrossFit. Like we always preach mechanics, consistency, and then intensity. And that's not simply like there's so many things that fold into it. There's a safety standpoint, but there's also an efficiency standpoint.
Yeah.
I mean efficiency, like you're gonna be able to move faster, better, easier. Some people don't understand is like efficiency doesn't mean always faster. It sometimes also means easier.
That's
like
true.
You could when you have
how do I not die in workouts all the time? Well, move more efficiently.
Yes,
because you're wasting a shit ton of energy moving like an
turtle.
Yeah. I was gonna say bad words.
I know.
I get it.
But that's the big thing I try to tell people.
That's a good point.
It's like when we say weight in heels, we're not sitting there just like, oh my gosh, but I can move faster on my toes. No, you're actually wasting so much more energy. If you're sitting on your weight in your heels and pushing through those heels every time, you're actually you have more force production. Therefore, your squat's gonna move more efficiently and easier down the road.
Yeah.
And so those are those things when people get into the practice territory, they kind of almost roll their eyes or scoff at it, or they lose sight of the intention.
It's not fun.
It's
not fun.
It's meant to be slow.
Suck it up.
It's meant to be slow.
Yeah,
it's meant to be mind-blowing.
No one enjoys like sitting on a box and practicing the foot wrap of a rope climb for 10 minutes.
No.
And never climbing the rope. Just wrap the feet, hold, sit back down. Wrap the feet, hold, sit. Or using a PVC pipe or an empty barbell to drill the Bergner progressions of the snatch. Like, it's not fun. But that's the stuff that's going to make big dividends. That's why, like, professional athletes practice most of the time and then they compete during the games.
Yeah.
It's like you have to get better at the thing and then you can put it in like a higher intensity situation, which would be training.
Yes. And then so now we get into like the next block. And when we go to each of these in their own episode, we'll talk about how much time do we spend in practice, how much time do we spend in training, and how much time we spend in competition and competing, right? Because competing is not going to be much of your training.
Yeah.
There's a small dosage of it, but we'll get more into like the how long do we spend in each window and how does
some like
that look.
Specific examples for things.
Yeah. But now we look at the training block, right? And this is where we're going to spend a chunk of our time, right? Outside of practice, this is the next bat up. We're spending a chunk of our time here. Now, this is where I like to think of it as like moderate to high-ish intensity, right? It's not necessarily the max effort, the 110%, but it's this is where we're pushing hard, we're challenging loads, we're doing things like that, right? And this is typically what you'll see for the majority of time in class, right?
Yeah, this is where we are actually building the fitness.
Yes.
This is where we are building the strength. This is where we are building the cardiovascular system and building the speed. This is like training is where you're building those physiological adaptations. Again, practice, the neurological adaptations. Here, training is where we are actually building the adaptations and taking what we've learned through our practice and starting to put it to application a little bit. We've practiced the air squat and the rope climb and the whatever. Now we're going to put it through some application with a little bit more intensity, a little bit faster movement, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like the idea, again, it's mechanics, consistency, intensity.
Yes.
We did the mechanics consistently in practice. Now this is the time where we're going to show intensity. Because, again, once you've mastered, or not, actually you can't, I don't think you ever can master an air squat, but once you become very good at an air squat, like, cool, I have full range of motion, I have weight in my heels, I'm driving my knees out, my chest is up, sweet, all the things are checking the boxes. Now let's apply it to training. Let's move a little faster. Let's move for more reps, whatever that looks like. And now we're going to start to see, we'll see a little degradation maybe. We might see, oh, hey, now we're losing range of motion because we added too many reps. Okay, so now we know, hey, we have to work on that. And we have to get the physiological adaptations. So now we're able to perform the squat at a more higher volume or higher pace or whatever that is, right? And now this is where we take all the things that we practice and build upon and we apply them.
And this is where people are most of the time.
Yeah.
Like the training. That's what people come in for. That's what like the workouts are for. And this is where most people get too stuck.
Yeah.
And they don't do enough of the practice or some of the competing that we'll talk about. But this is just like here's the trap I see is like we come in, we don't practice anything. We just kind of dilly-dally through the warm-up. Don't worry about our movement efficiency in the warm-up. And then we kind of prep a little bit, and we're just moving here and there. And then the workout comes, and we hit the workout, and then we just kind of leave.
Yeah.
It's like you're just living your life in training, which awesome. Like I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
No.
That's great that you're in here training.
You still do it more than others, right?
Yes, 100%. You can get really fit from it. But there's going to be a ceiling that you're going to hit if you don't go through some of that practice and if we don't touch the competition stuff a little bit.
Yeah, and I think this is where a lot of people go like, man, it's like I just want to muscle up or I just want to pull up. And it's like, well, have you been practicing this? Have you been practicing that? Have you slowed down and tried this?
For sure.
It's like, no, I haven't. And it's like, okay, what's happening here is you have the strength, you have the ability, but now what we have to look at is the skill of the movement, right? It's not as simple as that. And I've had several conversations with members where I'll even just have them like, try it, see what happens. And they'll do it. And it's like, see? Yeah. Like you have the strength. It's just a matter of you haven't practiced the skill of doing it. And so, and it is like, especially if you're newer and you're gaining all the strength super fast and you're doing all this training stuff. It's fun, it's exciting, and then you hit a plateau and you're like, what the heck?
Yeah, what do I do now? And
sometimes it's simply it's
tough because everybody's different. Like some people you do need more strength and you don't need to practice. Other people you have enough strength and you need more practice. Everybody's different. These are just kind of some overviews of these concepts. And if anybody like wants to learn more about that stuff, let us know and we can figure out like, okay, what do you need? Do you need more training? Do you need more practice? Based upon your goal, do we need to touch the the hot end of the stove and do some more competition type stuff?
And that's that final category, right?
Yeah.
So we have practice, we have training, and then we have competition. And the big thing I want to like clarify with competition is like, this is where I think a lot of people get turned off because like, I don't like competitions. And it's not always necessarily going and signing up for an event and competing in person.
No.
Like it's not always that, right? Nope. Now those are good gateways. Like I think the Open's a great way to get some competition in.
Yep.
I think signing up for events is a great way to get competition in, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to do those things.
No, when I think about competition, I'm thinking about this is the maximal expression of your fitness.
Yeah.
We have practiced and gotten a lot of skills. We have trained and built up fitness. Now we are going to express it or test it with some form of a competition, whether it's just a workout in the gym that you decide this is the one I'm going to do, or it's a benchmark workout that we do, or it is the Open or a competition or whatever. Competing is not meant to get you fitter. It is meant to express your maximum fitness and beat somebody.
Yes.
Whether that's yourself.
Yeah.
It could be beating yourself.
That's the thing. It's like it doesn't necessarily need to be Joe Schmo to your left.
No.
Like it's an expression of you versus you and where you're at with things. And ultimately, it's a test.
Yeah.
Right? It shows like, hey, I tested Fran 6 months ago. Now I'm going to retest Fran. Hey, I got faster at Fran. My fitness is improving. Cool. What was the hardest part about it? Well, I had to break the pull-ups multiple times here and there or whatever it is. And we can kind of look at that and assess that data. But that competition is a way for us to test ourselves and then assess ourselves.
Yes.
And then see where we need to work, right? The same thing goes if we were doing a mile run, right? If I do a mile run 6 months ago and I retest my miles 6 months ago, if I stay the same, get worse or get better, I've tested my fitness.
Yep.
Cool. I've competed against myself. I either did better, did the same, or I am worse than myself before, right? So, but this again, it's a moment of like, okay, I competed, I gave my max effort, it was super hard. Now I can get a little reflection. Am I doing better? Am I improving the way I want to improve?
Do I need to go back and train? Do I need to practice things?
Is there something I'm missing? Yes. And so that's why like you're not going to spend a whole lot of time in that competition aspect throughout your training year, but it's something that should be intermittently introduced throughout the year because it allows you to assess. I think that's the big thing that people miss in like CrossFit methodology or those that find plateaus. Like, wow, I'm stuck where I'm at. Cool. Have you tested yourself somewhere?
Yeah.
What's so plateau? Well, in a workout and training, I feel this way. Great. Well, I don't feel great during the third training.
No kidding.
So, like yesterday, my workout was awful. Like I like burnt out. I was sizzling. I was tired. Right. So like you're gonna have good days, bad days, especially when it comes to training. Right. It's always the rule of thirds. But it's like the competition is like that segment is an opportunity for you just to assess where you're at, so you can see those specific things. Right. Because in training's great to test yourself, but it's not always gonna get the best results.
Right.
Because you're gonna have fatigue. You're gonna have this. You're gonna have that. It all accumulates.
Yeah.
Right. So, but it's why it's an important segment to this. That's why
is.
All three of these things have their own unique role, and they all compound, like you said, into each other, right? Practice builds into training builds into competition, and ultimately competition reflects how you feel, and then it takes us right back to practice, training, right?
And with competition, what I see is one of two things. Either the person competes way too often in just an everyday group class to where they sacrifice movement efficiency, form, technique, whatever, just for a score. And they are potentially overtraining, burning themselves out. That doesn't happen a ton, but there's a category of people that do that. Or the category of people that do not compete at all. They never push to their maximal level. They never find where their limits are. So then we don't know where we need to work. Yeah. So it's like it's really hard to find, well, what's that blend? It's different for everybody. But those are the two things I see. It's either we never touch the hot end of the stove to test it, or we just freaking throw our hand on that baby and sizzle out.
Yeah.
It's like there has to be a very intentional blend of, okay, how many times are we going to touch that part of the stove? How long are we going to hold it there for? How many times a year do we want to do this thing?
When we do it.
When do we do
things
it?
like that.
Big time.
Absolutely.
And it's not just like, people see us that do these competitions or games athletes or whatever, and we're not just like willy-nilly just signing up for all these things and then going and do it. Like there's a very most
High
of the
rocks
time
maybe, but-
for the bit, yeah, stuff like that, yes. But things that we're like trying to actually peak for, the couple big events that we know throughout the year. It's a very intentional. Here's when it is. Here's what my training and practice leading up to that must look like.
Yeah.
So when I get there, I can compete at my most optimal form.
Exactly.
And that's a big key component, and it can. Even like you said, even if you don't care about competition, it's still, this is going to help improve your fitness.
Yeah, and that's like the term competition, I think, is what turns people off, and it's not meant to like make you feel like you got to go compete against Joe Schmo.
It doesn't have to be a CrossFit competition.
No,
it can be anything, like a high rocks, a Spartan. It can be anything that's going to test your maximum fitness in a certain task.
Yeah, or it's like maybe you have the goal of running faster, right?
Yeah,
awesome. Like maybe that's a mile, maybe that's 2 miles, right? So that means at some point, maybe you start in January for 3-4 months. You're accumulating your times, running, training hard, practicing, doing all the things. Then in like month 5, you should test that distance.
Yeah.
If it's 2 miles, cool. Run a very hard, fast, as
kill
best
yourself.
You can. Yeah, 2 miles.
Die.
See what you get.
Yeah.
You got 18 minutes. Cool. Go for another. If that's not where you want to be and you want to improve that more, you take another 4 or 5 months. Train, practice, do your thing, and then you retest that month 5. For sure. See where you get. You got better? Cool. You're on the right track. You're practicing. You're making your movement efficiency better. You're training the way you need to be training. Awesome. You're on track, right? And that's the big thing to understand with competition. And again, we'll break it down more in detail when we get to like that specific episode. But it's the one I think many people I see in the gym tend to miss. Yeah. Because we either
I'm not a competitive athlete.
Yeah, like you said, we either coast and just kind of show up, or we come in and we come out, balls out every single day.
Yep.
And I think that's where it's super hard to balance competition.
It is.
Right?
It really is.
And it's not comfortable. Like you're gonna push yourself to a max effort, that 110%, and it's you get uncomfortable a little bit. But that, again, it shows you results. That way you can assess where you're at, right?
And a lot of times this is where people will do something that they didn't know that they could do. That's why every single year in the Open, somebody gets their first something. Somebody PRs a lift. It's not because you magically got stronger that day. It's because you finally put in a 100% effort through competition, and you have been strong enough to do that thing. You just never really went for it. You've always been training like that 80%, 90%. Finally, the Open shows up. There's butterflies. You're anxious. You're nervous. And you give it everything you got. The adrenaline kicks in and you get a PR, get the first muscle up, whatever. That's the beauty of competition, is you really get to see what you're capable of. And then we go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, because it happens. Like I said, it happens all the time. Like I've been in a class and I made a member do a strict pull-up. Yeah. I just said, do it.
Do it.
They're like, I can't do it. I'm like, yeah, you can. Do it. And they did it.
You made her compete.
Yeah. And it's like, it's just in that moment, like I made her compete and she understood, oh, I am capable of this thing. Right. And so, and it's not an easy thing. Sometimes you just have no clue, but that's where competition comes in handy. It's just that opportunity. Hey, I'm going to push myself. I'm going to see what happens.
And then we go back.
Yep.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
If you don't think it's cool, shut up. It's freaking cool.
It is cool. But
shut up, Carmen.
Never mind. I was gonna say something, but Carmen, hold back. But so that's the overview, right? That's practice, training, competition. And what we're gonna do here in the next coming episodes is we're gonna look specifically at practice. How much time do we spend in practice? We're gonna break down some examples of like what does practice look like when it comes to maybe just looking at the back squat, or maybe when it looks at handstand walking.
Yeah, let's take like one or two movements on the whiteboard, and we'll we'll
break them down.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, we'll spend some time with practice, and we'll do the same thing with training. We'll carry the same movements into training just so you can kind of see, and then we'll do the same thing with competition. And we'll discuss like how much time you should be spending, and windows, and all those things in the coming episodes. But that's a general overview of like practice, training, and competition, and why it's important to incorporate when it comes to your training regimen, right? It's a concept that should be applied now. Yeah. Like it's not something you just like, oh, well, that's kind of a cool thing. It's something, especially with the CrossFit methodology, that should be present already. So,
yeah. Cause like, we're not just saying this stuff to say it. Like this is how you can improve and get better. And if you're paying the money to come here, you're spending your time showing up here and working out, you might as well get as much benefit as you can. Right. And doing these things is going to get you more benefit. And if I didn't think so, I wouldn't say it.
Yeah, right. Well, it's like the thing too is like even those that are like trying to lose weight, right? I always tell you, well, you got to kind of move faster to like lose weight because you're going to burn more. You're going to do all the cool things. Like, that's the grand scheme of things. The faster you move, the more you're going to start to, right. It comes down to nutrition, all those things. But I always tell people, well, if you want to move faster, you got to move more effectively. More efficiently. And so it's like,
practice moving first.
You got to practice moving. Yeah. So
it applies to everybody, no matter what goal you have. That's the cool thing about this is it applies to everybody, no matter what your goal is.
And it doesn't matter, like I said, it doesn't matter whether it's an air squat or handstand walking. It does not necessarily need to be a high-end skill of gymnastics. It could just be a simple, basic movement, getting in a full range of motion of an air squat. Just tons of things. We'll get into those rabbit holes and things like that when we get into those future episodes. But it's important. And it's something to reflect upon, look at. And if you have questions, talk to any of the coaches, reach out to us. We'll kind of break down, and we can look at your, like, your year, and like maybe there's some things we can focus on and what your goals are. And we can align those things. So, but yeah, cool. Well, with that being said, that's been this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more episodes coming in the future, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.